12 seconds on the play clock when they snapped before the Juszczyk touchdown. And then I saw the quote from Kyle about the punt at midfield when they were down 10-0. After the snap from Alex Mack, where the left side of the line wasn't ready, Sermon gets like a loss of a half yard instead of what probably could have been a loss of more than that. The Niners punted the football. The Packers drove down the field and scored. Kyle Shanahan said about that sequence, quote, "That's one I regret a ton. Trey Sermon did a good job of getting back to the line of scrimmage, and I should have stayed with my original feeling, which was to go for it on 4th down and short from midfield." We're glad you're watching this video. Like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Also, subscribe to our podcast below in the description.
We're sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka.
Yes, we are. #1 vodka in America.
Savor responsibly. I think my take watching that sequence again, you and I watched it again. We watched the end of the game again. We watched the Juszczyk touchdown again. That this team does not have big margin for error with their quarterback, with some of the questions. Their defense, K'Wan Williams, John, is hurt. He's out. Buster Screen is replacing K'Wan Williams this week.
When did that happen?
Like 10 minutes ago. Calf strain. So we can talk more about that later.
Jesus.
I can think of a guy who's out there working out for the Bucs right now that the Niners might be interested in. But they just don't have the margin for error to not be buttoned down. And Shanahan, I don't know if it was because he was so angry at the bad play on 3rd down that he didn't collect himself, or he couldn't see the spot well enough to decide to go for it. But that hurt him. Snapping the ball with 12 seconds, the more I've looked at it and thought about it, the people that were mad about that on Sunday night were right. Snapping the ball with 12 seconds on the play clock. If you watch that play again, Juszczyk did nothing. They're trying to rip the ball out of Juszczyk's arm, right? He's got 2 guys on him. One of them's trying to rip the ball out. So he's fighting to hold on to the football as he's driving forward. Hashtag ball security. Hashtag Harvard. So
4 points of pressure.
But 12 seconds, if you go back, you and I did this. We watched it. 12 seconds, they snapped it. 12 seconds on the play clock. You go back and watch the rest of that game and you take those 12 seconds away, and that's a major impact on the football game on the Packers' last drive.
And to me, it's not even about, like, I think in a perfect world, when a team is going to kick a field goal at the end of the game and the other team has no timeouts and it's ticking and the coach is standing right next to the referee and he goes, "I'm going to call this thing right at 1 second," and he just does it and the ref knows, so you can't screw it up. I don't even think you have to get to, like, snap the ball exactly at 1 second, which instead of 42 on the clock would have been 30. And when Kyle would have got in, instead of it being 35, would have been, 23 or whatever. To me, if you just snap it around 5 seconds, that 7-second swing is enormous. Because that gives you a little wiggle room. I think sometimes it happens a lot. Lamar, clearly I've seen a lot of people give the Lions, I don't know if Dan Campbell mentioned anything, but they got screwed. That final play that his throw on 4th and long was 0 seconds on the play clock.
Yeah, ridiculous.
So
I don't understand, by the way. Can I say something about that play real quick?
Yeah.
Why do we treat the play clock differently than we treat the clock on every other planet, in every other sequence?
Well, isn't the referee staring at the clock?
But the thing, the explanation on the play clock is always like, all right, the referee looks at the clock, and then he looks down, and then once he sees 0, he looks down, and if the ball's not snapped, then he waits a beat, then he throws the flag. Even by that measure, they screwed that one up. But it's like when I show up for first period at 8 a.m., bell rings at 8 a.m., I'm late if it's after 8 a.m. I don't have to look. There's a bell. I don't understand. Anyway,
I agree. And to me, that is one where, Jimmy Garoppolo is 30 years old, and he's been in the league now for a long time around Kyle Shanahan, Josh McDaniels, and fucking Bill Belichick. Like, that to me, I'm putting on him, Yeah. Like, to me, some instincts. Like, we're not in a total rush. There's difference between being in a rush, like the Packers were on that final drive, and being in control with urgency, which the Niners should have had there, right? Hey, once we pass the midfield and get down there, we have urgency because we have to score, but we are still going to dictate the terms. So let's just and Jimmy, like, a lot of people have DM'd me about prevent defense, like Middlecoff, what? Like I'm Wink Martindale or something. I would just say, in my time watching football for a living, I do think it's very difficult to strike a balance of prevent defense, and you can't blitz everyone against Aaron Rodgers. We saw Wink Martindale do that against Derek Carr, and it cost him the game. You blitz everyone, Devontae Adams could be walking into the end zone, or even one of their other wide receivers. I have no problem with playing your defensive coverage. To me, Fred Warner, coaches hammer this home. Like, there is a difference between doing what is expected. Like, Jimmy, you're going to run this play. Kyle, you're going to run it. We're going to execute the shit out of it. Ideally, like, Kyle breaks tackles and gets in the end zone. But even if you get tackled right at the one or two, that's a badass play. That's high-level execution. But it's also like your instincts. Like, Kyle's instincts are to break tackles, get into the end zone. Jimmy, your instincts as a player, how many times have you been in these meetings and heard the fucking coaches hammer this? See the number, call, snap the ball. I'm sure they have these drills in the offseason and the training camp about be a football player. Like, to me, my thing with Fred Warner, and I have no problem being critical of Jimmy because his game is kind of hit or miss. Fred Warner has, like, been a perfect player for the Niners for, like, the last 3 years. Like, I can't expect anything more of him. But I think if he was being self-critical, his, like, deep kills you there. The underneath stuff, you can swarm to the ball. They don't have any timeouts. So, like, that depth, I bet he's getting his depth exactly like they're telling him, right? Whatever. Get to your landmark. But it's also like, well, they're running deeper routes. Get even deeper, right? Because he was just millimeters away from tipping the ball. But it's like, I can't let anyone get behind me on a crossing route. Someone gets in front of me, I'm the best fucking player on this field. Me and Devontae, I can still tackle him in front of me. But get behind me, that kills us. So it's a balance of just like, that's one to me, Fred. Maybe that gets in that situation again. Instincts picks the ball. Because they try it, that same team would probably try to run it against that prevent defense. Yeah. Where it's like, be an instinctive player. Don't just be a robot. And that's a balance. And I think the best players historically, and just the really good ones, have a balance of doing what they're told, but also, let your playmakers make play. Like being a playmaker, being instinctive. Like, I can't just get to, Lewis used to talk a lot about this when he played for Saban and Belichick. I don't know if you know this. He's only mentioned this a million times. That, like, you have different assignments, right, in coverage, especially as like a safety, to get to different landmarks. Well, there's difference of just like, I got to get 7 yards deep and 2 yards over. And also, hey, I got Julio Jones that he's doing this. Like, I got to cheat it a little bit. And remember Belichick when he was on the greatest 100 players and he like had an erection talking about Ed Reed's play? Like, that's the highest level of instincts. Yeah. But there's some middle ground that I think Jimmy, you kind of blew that one.
Yeah, I think
what's the rush, right?
Be quick, but don't hurry is the legendary quote from John Wooden, right? Be quick, but don't hurry. And there was no rush. In fact, again, this was one of like 3 moments in a critical spot in the game that Chris Collinsworth said something really good. Chris Collinsworth gets a lot of heat. I enjoy him. Before the snap of that play, before the Niners snapped the ball with 12 seconds on the play clock at the touchdown use check, Collinsworth says the Niners don't want to stop the clock right now. If anything, they want the clock to run as much as possible because they don't want to give the ball back to the Packers with any time left. He said it right there. Get in our DraftKings game. The link is below. Sign up at DraftKings with the code HAM.
Also, if you want to gamble, use mybookie.ag, promo code HAM1. Thursday Night Football, Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, mybookie.ag, promo code HAM1.
And I agree with Kyle Juszczyk. I believed it that night, and I believe it even more today. Once that play happens in that moment, when you've already had, A, you're trailing, and B, you had the end of the first half when you guys couldn't punch it in, and you're just in the middle of this moment where you're fighting to hold on to the football. Like, I don't have 1 ounce, 1% of myself that has any issue with Juszczyk scoring. But while you can control the play and control everything, everyone's just standing there, the ball's sitting on the field. This team doesn't have the room for error.
I agree.
To snap the ball with 12 seconds on the play clock.
Well, once you get it over midfield under, around the minute mark, for them not having timeouts has to dictate the way you're thinking, right?
By the way, another thing that Collinsworth said, like, was 6 minutes left in the game when they used their last timeout.
They're just going to come back to bite them?
He just said that, wow, Packers used their last timeout.
Yeah. Well, you see it happen a lot in the NFL. Sometimes it happens in the first half and they make too big a deal with it. It can cost you points at the end of the first half. It can be very, very critical in the second half when you blow a couple timeouts. I mean, the Harbaugh teams did it a lot. Delay a game type stuff or just fuck ups on defense. You have no timeouts with 5 or 6 minutes left in a big game, tight game. That is, I mean, the Packers should, have gone to church Sunday night, and just said thanks, because that's, if they had one timeout and pulled that off, very understandable, right? They have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, the best wide receiver in the game. But to do that with no timeouts is, to me, what really made that win on their side and the loss for the Niners be so extreme, right? It's like, oh my God. Wouldn't you agree if they would have had multiple timeouts? Let's say the Packers used one. They had all 3 on that final Niners drive. They used one to slow down the clock. The Niners still end up scoring, and then they had 2, and they pulled that off. It's really not that crazy.
Right.
It's kind of understandable.
Yeah.
But in the situation where they have no timeouts, even everyone on their couch is like, well, we're still in pretty good shape. They got no timeouts. But you're thinking in the back of your mind, is this too good to be true? And It was too good to be true because of the way, I think it just all simply gets back to that. The difference of 7 seconds. Again, just let it go to 5. I'll never have a problem right around that 5-minute mark. I know a lot of people like to get really greedy, but you see enough fuck-ups, right? And in that situation, to lose 5 yards, it's like... But they rushed to the they were on the line of scrimmage 15 seconds. Everyone just, let's take a deep breath.
Yep.
But I also go back to the balance, like you said at the end of the first half. They're not exactly the 07 Pats where a touchdown's guaranteed. That's the hard part. And Jimmy's not thinking I'm just every time I lead a drive, I score.
It's true, but we're talking about the play clock here, not the game clock, right?
Yeah, they had 45 seconds on their side.
And they had timeouts.
How many timeouts they have? They definitely had.
They had all.
Yeah, they definitely
had
all
3.
You're right.
So, yeah.
And you can always spike the ball, in their situation when you have a lot of time. Not ideal because you give up a down, but
right. But I don't think it wasn't
even getting close to that.
If it came to that, there were some other failures that we'd probably have to talk about. But if it came to that, then Trey Lance probably would be starting this week. If they were in that position that they were and couldn't score and used all their timeouts and were spiking the football somehow,
that would have been a disaster.
That means they would have run 4. That would have been before first down time. It would have been, because there's 4 downs. So I don't know how they would have even been in that position. They would have had a penalty and fumbled the ball backwards, right?
That would have been worse than what happened.
Yes.
Which is saying something, because what happened was pretty bad.
Yeah.